This is James Lutton for Pro Boxing Fans. Delighted to be joined on Zoom today with Ray Boom Boom Mancini. Ray, how are you, sir?
I'm very good, James. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure, everyone. I wanted to start this interview with a bit of a light-hearted and a bit of a jovial way. Tell us a story about a Reservoir Dogs audition.
The audition with
For
Reservoir Dogs. Oh yeah, I told our friend, our mutual friend Scott, that story. He loves that story. I was in LA for 30 years, and when I went out there, I first went out there. I was being represented by the William Morris Agency by 1983 on for commercial endorsements, speaking engagements, and acting. But I was being offered, every time I was being offered roles, but I wasn't able to take advantage of it because I was fighting. I was in training camp most of the time. So anyhow, I moved out there and I started acting, and I was doing a lot of good stuff, TV, mainly, did some feature film roles. So finally, I got an audition for Reservoir Dogs, and I met with Tarantino. First, I met with the casting director, read for the casting director. And, actors know when you do a good job. Actors know, like I said, when you kick ass, when you stink out the joint too. But I kicked ass on this one. So I got a second call back, and I really did a great job then. So I got a third call back. Now, in acting, when you get three callbacks, it's pretty much down to you and somebody else. If you get one call back, they like what they saw, they want to see a little bit more. Two callbacks, they pretty much know what they want, and now it's between you and somebody else. So I went in. This time, Tarantino's there, a couple of other people, producers, and casting director, of course. Now I'm sitting, there's a table in between us, and I auditioned. And again, I had to roll down. Now I was reading from Mr. Pink. So if anybody remembers Reservoir Dogs, each of the characters had different names. They called Mr. Pink, Mr. Blue, Mr. Green. Okay. So I kicked ass on this. I did a hell of a job. And like I said, when you do a good job, and when you don't. And Tarantino goes, wow, man, that was great. That was great, but I can't give you the role. I said, what? He said, I can't give you the role. I said, what do you mean? He says, yeah, man, because I give you the role. It would take everyone right out of the picture. But they would say, oh, man, that's Boom Boom Mancini. They wouldn't be looking at the character. They'd say, that's Boom Boom Mancini. I said, then why the hell you got me come back here? He said, man, I just wanted to see you. I just want to see what you can do. I was expecting you to fall on your face. But, man, you did, man. You knocked it out of the park. But I can't give you the role. So now, by this time, I'm up on the table and I'm pushing the table back and I'm pointing, who the hell are you? Who do you think? You some jerk off that you talk to me that way? I come over there and I'll rip your heart out. I'll make you piss blood for a month. You no good son of a gun, BB. And I'm throwing all these adjectives out, calling every name in the book. And I'm getting closer and closer. People are like, oh man, no. And he goes, no, man. Don't go. And as I did that, I caught myself. Because the one thing in Hollywood is they say, one thing I've learned, trust me, they say, they don't care how good an actor. If the guy's crazy or they don't want, if he's a headache, you work with somebody else. So as I caught myself after this, I turned and started walking away. And then like I said, I caught myself. I stopped. I turned around and said, how was that for acting? And they go, oh my God, oh no, you really got us. But I wasn't acting when I really was angry. I was like going over. But again, the worst thing that happens is I caught myself and I realized now I got all these people looking at me, staring at me. They're going to say, there's this crazy son of a gun. You can't hire him. So that's why I turned and walked away, and I came up with that. So that's the story. Now, Steve Buscemi got the role of Mr. Pink. Steve's a good friend of mine. We work together, and Steve's a wonderful actor. A wonderful actor. And people always say, well, Steve Buscemi got the role. Oh, you couldn't do it, Steve Buscemi. I said, no. Don't get it twisted. I'd have been as good, but different. But I've been as good. but it would have been a little bit different. That's all. And if you imagine, you always hear the stories about guys who were up for certain roles, guys who were up for the great movies of before, The Maltese Falcon. George Raft was given that role for Humphrey Bogart, and he turned it down. And same thing with same thing with the other great one with about France. I forgot, even they were in Algiers. Casablanca. George Raft was offered that role first. He, again, for whatever reason, he turned it down. And then Humphrey Bogart. So my point being is, a lot of guys, you say, oh, that's Humphrey Bogart. You can't imagine nobody else doing that role. But once you understand the story, it's same thing in Godfather. Marlon Brando was in choice. They had already given the role, I think, to Anthony Quinn. And then the role of Michael was given to Ryan O'Neal. Ryan O'Neal is as white bread as you get. So, my point being is, that's the story of Hollywood. When you see a role, you go, you can't imagine nobody else in that role. But it's just different, though. Those guys would have been very good. They did the role well, but they would have played it different. So that's the story.
Absolutely fantastic.
I'm sorry I went a long way for that, but that's the story.
No, it's a great to start there. Let's get into the boxing. We can see your titles behind you, the canvas backdrop there.
You know what? I'm sorry, James. We just moved into this house in January, and I told my bride, this is my office, and I have nothing. Start putting some stuff on the wall. But we did this, I said, because I did a few of these Zoom events. I go, we got to have something behind me. So my bride thought of, so that's the decor. I hope you don't mind it. Yeah, it's a very subtle message.
No, it's fantastic. Let's talk about your start. Obviously, your father, Lenny, was a fighter. How big of an influence was he into your start into boxing?
It was everything to me. He's everything I wanted to be. As a man, as a father, as a man, period. Of course, I wanted to be the father. He was up to me. But that's later on, obviously. But the fighter that he was. I was hearing so many stories. I used to read his scrapbooks. I knew the stories of my father. I know the stories better than him. Then I hear the stories from people who saw him fight. And, I just wanted to be everything he was. And, my father was a better fighter than me. I know that. My father came at a great time with a lot of great fighters. He came during the Depression time when guys had to eat. They were hungry. They did whatever it took to fight. They had to fight. They had to bit your nose off for $1.25 just to eat. So I come at the right time. But my father would have been $1 million fighter if he was fighting in my time. You know what I mean? But yeah, he was a big influence. But the funny thing is, people always say you're a fighter because of your father. I say yes and no. Yes, I wanted to be him. I wanted to be my father. That's why I became a fighter. But my father's the one who tried to talk me out of it in the worst way. My father never wanted me to be a fighter. My father tried to tell me, Raymond, I had to fight. It was depression. You have so many other opportunities. Because I had an athletic scholarship to go to college, academic and athletic scholarship to go to college, and then a professional baseball offer here to go, try out with the Toronto Blue Jays. So I had other opportunities, and he wanted me to pursue those. But I said no. I want to be I want to win the title for you. What's he going to say? And fortunate enough, it played out.
Absolutely, certainly worked out all right. Do you remember? Sure, you was probably in the boxing gym at a young age with your father. But what's your earliest memory of being in the boxing gym?
Well, see, again, I didn't go to the gym until I was 15 years old. Now, my brother had been in the gym before because he's fighting amateurs, and I used to go see him. But my brother, I used to go see him, and when I'd go see him, I was, a young kid, and I'd say, to the amateur trainer that was around there was probably the best. My brother, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Excuse me, my bride. T, I'm doing a radio interview. Let me call you back. I'm doing a radio interview. Let me call you back. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Well, that's what happens with live TV, right? Or live Zoom.
Exactly.
So I used to go to see him. And one day, Mr. Sullivan, he told the story later on. I actually forgot about it. But my amateur trainer, Ed Sullivan, told the story later on. I guess when I went to see my brother train. So one day I was in there and I said to Mr. Sullivan, one day I'm going to come here and I'm going to be training here. And I'm going to be the best fighter you ever had. And I guess he started laughing. Well, I hope you are, But that's what I felt. So, but I didn't go to the gym to train until I was 15 years old because they had the Junior Olympics. The first time I had heard about the Junior Olympics, because you got to be 16 to enter the Golden Gloves. And I thought I was going to have to wait till then. Then I was 15, I heard about the Junior Olympics. And so I fought in the Junior Olympics, but they had nothing locally in Youngstown. I had to go to Cleveland, which is an hour away. So I fought in Cleveland, the Junior Olympics. I won the regional title, or the state title. And then I go to the regional title, which was in Detroit, Michigan. And I won my first 2 fights there. And then I fought a guy named Sammy Fuentes, who beat me by decision. I forget, he dropped me in the first round. And I said, oh man, this ain't good. That's not where you want to be. But I got up and I came back and I almost knocked him out in the 3rd round. And he got the decision. He won the first 2 rounds. And but then I found out he had over 100 amateur fights. He had much more experience than I did. So it gave me great, confidence. But when you lose as an amateur, I don't care, when you're a young kid, you lose, you feel terrible, you feel like you let everyone down and all that. But it's you understand the learning process as an amateur. It's the greatest education you can have. So man, I got this fly flying around here, and so that's how my first time in the gym, and then how I went into the amateurs. But I was there. I didn't start young because a lot of kids start right. You hear about when they started when they're 7, 8, whatever. I was 15 when the first time I went to the gym, and then I fought in Golden Gloves right after that.
You mentioned you started boxing because you wanted to win a world title for your father. What are your highlights of your career looking back?
As an amateur?
All throughout your career, so as a pro as well.
Well, look, I started, let's just say, as an amateur, winning the Golden Gloves title locally. The Golden Gloves, the amateur program in Youngstown was big, very big. On championship night, to be over, the place only seats 2,500. There'd be over 3,000 people to the rafters. The firemen were there. The fire department was there because they had to be careful because there was so many people, standing room only. And I used to go there on championship night when I was a little boy. My father used to take me every championship night, and I'd say, "I'm going to do this someday. I'm going to do this." So that was, winning the Golden Gloves for 3 years in a row was a big achievement locally, and that gave me the confidence that I could move on. And I knew I wanted to turn pro. I always knew I wanted to be a pro, and I figured my father turned pro at 18. That's when I'm going to turn pro. So at 18, after my last amateur fight, I fought in the National Golden Gloves in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'd fought the defending champion. His name was Melvin Paul. Later became a pro and was a contender. Never won a title, but good fighter. And again, and I beat him. I beat Melvin Paul. Even at the end of the fight, there's people turned their back because they, when he had the decision. And I was so heartbroken. And I went in the locker room, and I was so down. And a man came up to me. He said, "Young man," he said, "look, my name is Murphy Griffith. I've been watching you this whole tournament." He said, "Young man, you ain't never going to win a national tournament, but you could be a very good pro. And someday maybe a champion, and I can help get you there." He said, "What's your plans?" I said, "I ain't never going to fight another amateur fight." He said, "Well, let's talk." And that's how he knew my local coach. That's how he knew him. That's how I got to talk to him. And from there we talked, and he told me, he said, "I work with a manager named David Wolf, and I'll put Dave in touch with you if And Dave called me about a week later. "What's your plans?" Told him I want to turn pro. He said, "Look, you got to. If I take you on, you got to come to New York. You have to sleep in Griff's couch. When you start making enough money, you can get to your own apartment." He said, "I'm not going to give you no upfront money," because there were some local guys here in Youngstown, some local wise guys that wanted to take me on, and they were going to, we're going to give you rent. We're going to pay you just to train. We'll give you a weekly salary. We're going to rent you an apartment. We're going to buy you a car. And I'll never forget, we were at the meeting, and my father said, "We'll take it. We'll take it." And I said, Dad, relax. I said, well, what can you do for my career? They said, well, Raymond, we're new to the business. We really don't know. We're going to hire a booking agent out of Florida, and we're going to talk to Angelo Dundee about training you. But it's okay. Dave Wolf called me, said, I'm not going to give you no upfront money. He said, I'll float you some money, but you're going to have to pay me back. It's a loan. You're going to have to pay me back after the first couple of fights. He said, and sleep on Griff's couch. You're going to have to train, go take the subway downtown. There's a little diner around the corner. You eat at every day. Close enough that you could live right, a block away from Central Park. That's where you do road work. He said, but let me tell you, you do your job, I'll do mine, and I'll get you the world title. I said, okay. That's all I wanted to hear. So that was it. Plus, again, I wanted to be my father. My father went to New York. I wanted to go to New York. So, I believe in destiny in many ways, in as far as life and love. And I really believe I was destined to follow my father's tracks.
At what stage did you feel you were going to follow in his footsteps and you were going to be a world champion?
Look, you have that confidence as a young man when you go to New York. That's your dream. It's a dream, but if you don't have confidence in your dream, then it's just air. Then it's just time wasted. If you're truly going after something and truly believe in what you're going after, the dream, the goal. I'm not saying sometimes it don't always happen. For a lot of people, it don't happen. But if you're not giving it your whole heart and soul, it's just wasted time. It's nothing. But I knew the first step in becoming world champion, the first step in that impetus of being everything I wanted to be, everything I ever dreamed of, was going to New York. So, I believed, from a young age that it was going to happen for me. In my mind, I was just, the mind's a hell of a thing. And you always hear a story. But the old saying, what the mind can conceive, the body can achieve. Now scientists, sports psychologists have a fancy name. It's called positive mental visualization, right? If you could dream it, you could be it, achieve it. I said, hell, man, I was called dreaming. That's really all it is. But you got to believe in that. And I did. So, I'll never forget after early in my career, I had been like 12, 13-0 or something. And I had a reporter ask me once, if you weren't a world fighter, if you weren't a professional fighter, what would you be? I said, I can't answer that because there's nothing else I ever wanted to be. I was a good athlete. I played all sports, baseball, basketball, football. Again, I was offered a professional baseball offer. I played high school football, basketball, until you have to start giving them up little by little to focus on boxing. I like to think I'd have been successful no matter what I've done, whatever I would have tried. But, there's nothing else I knew I wanted to be. So when he answered, I couldn't answer that, And then years later, after I had won the title, I was being interviewed by a reporter. He said, really, now that you won the third world title, he said, you could tell me, did you really believe it? I said, yeah, man, yeah. Because I used to dream about it. I used to have these dreams since I was 10 years old. Me walking around the ring carrying the belt. That's no bull crap. That's the truth. So, I don't, you just shake your heads at that. But people, I understand. I mean, maybe it's hard for some people to understand, but no. So at some point, you see it in your head, in your mind, and you just, whatever it takes to get there. So the first step was going to New York. And then I was fighting regularly. I was fighting often. As long as I was healthy, my manager told me, as long as you're healthy, we're going to keep you busy. So, I turned pro in October of 1979. I had 4 fights before the end of the year. And then starting in 1980, January, I had 12 fights, average 1 a month. Now, sometimes I'd have, there was one time I had 3 fights in 10 days. Because what happens is your manager books fights, when you're on an undercard of fights, they'll put you on. Your manager pays for the fight, basically. He pays to put you on. So the first fight, I knocked the guy out in the first round. The second fight, I knocked the guy in the second round. The third fight, I knocked the guy in the third round. So one fight was a week apart, and then the other fight was 4 days after that fight. You know what I mean? Physically, it doesn't, you're in shape. Physically, you're able to do it. Mentally, it takes a toll on you because you have to keep getting up for every fight, mentally and emotionally. And after you win, you have that come down. And then you got to try to get yourself up again. So, but I did it, and that was the education. That was the apprenticeship of being a world champion. You take the education. You got to do whatever it takes. And I was fighting as often as I could.
You mentioned you was offered a contract to be going to baseball. Obviously, with your father being a fighter and your inspiration there, you was always going to go into boxing no matter what. But were you better at boxing than baseball at the time?
I don't know. I mean, I was good. Like I said, I was a good athlete. I didn't believe I could have been whatever I choose to be. I'd have been successful. That sounds arrogant, maybe, but that's what I believe. But I like to think I'd have been baseball. Baseball's hard, man. Baseball's hard to get into. It takes a lot of. It's the one sport. Probably the only sport in life that we're 3 out of 10, where everything else is a failure. 30%. If you succeed only 3 out of 10 times, you're a failure. It's a loss. It's the only business where 3 out of 10 is a Hall of Fame career. It's a Hall of Fame career. So that's how hard it is. Now, I would have done it, and I would have worked my tail off to whatever I had to do to get there. But if I had the love for it, like I did for fighting, but I didn't. I had to, I played all sports. I love playing baseball, but fighting is what I felt born to do. I do believe, like I said earlier, I do believe in destiny. And I think I was destined to be a fighter, yeah. I mean, you can't dream about it. You can't think about it and be that. That's the first thing you ever want to be. Remember, that's the only thing you ever want to be. That's comes from somewhere.
Absolutely. In your heyday, you had high-profile fans, Frank Sinatra being one of them. Now, did you ever feel any added pressure going to any fights at all?
No. I mean, because you don't realize that as you go along. Then you realize, oh man, you get to meet people that you idolize, people that you had heroes. Like in every Italian American household, there was always 3 pitchers: the Pope, Frank Sinatra, and Joe DiMaggio. And sometimes there's another one, which would be Rocky Marciano. But every Italo-American household I went to, that's where it was. So my point being is, I knew Frank Sinatra. He was a hero to Italo-Americans, but I never felt any pressure. I was just very fortunate. I was guys that I became fans of. I was growing up, watching movies of, or the TV shows. And then you get to meet these guys. Man, that's quite special, and that's what I loved. That was probably the greatest thing about my career. I think is that I was able to do that.
Talk to me about, so yes, your highlights there. Talk to me about the lows in your career. What were the lowest points for you?
Well, the lows were first, obviously, losing the first opportunity in a world title to living the Alexis Arguello. It was my first title try. And look, as not too many times, there's only 2 belts, 1 too many as far as I'm concerned. So how many opportunities do you think you get to fight for a world title? Ask my father. My father got the first one opportunity and wasn't able to achieve it because of circumstances outside of his own control. So when I lost the title to Arguello, I thought that was it. I didn't know if I'd ever get another chance. I didn't think I would. And I thought, well, I let my father down, let myself down, let my city down. I took it, but obviously I came back with 2 fights right after that. The one thing I'm proud of, people don't understand, the fight was October 3rd. It was a hell of a fight, tough fight. And I had over 27 stitches in my mouth from cuts in my mouth. But I fought December 26th. I got right back in the ring. A little over 2 months more later. Guys lose now to the fight. You don't hear from them for over a year. Which I don't understand. Makes no sense. It was unfortunate, but I was, but time to get back on the, time to get back on the horse and start riding again. So, that was the biggest disappointment at that time. And then as you go down the road, you're winning, and then of course losing the title to Livingstone Bramble when I had the Camacho fight waiting. That was a big disappointment. Not because we took less. We didn't think we didn't take Bramble lightly at all. I couldn't afford to take anybody lightly. I didn't have that luxury. And actually, there was talk of Bramble taking step-aside money, which was common back then. for the number one contender to let a big fight happen, take a step aside, make get paid to step aside, and then he'd fight the winner. Still get his title shot. But I said, no, I don't want that. I don't want anybody to say I ducked them. See, now I was thinking more like a fighter instead of like a businessman. The businessman would say, no, pay him step aside. We'll get him after we beat Camacho. But I said, no. I don't want anybody to say I ducked them. So we'll beat Bramble and we'll go to Camacho. And then that didn't happen. So that's the other biggest regret in my career. And then the Camacho fight was 3 years too late. Or 4 years too late. Well, actually, it should have happened in 83, early 84. So it happened in 89, so almost 6 years too late. So yeah, it was much later than it should have happened. And the Camacho fight was a good fight. It was not a great fight. It was a good fight. Could have been a great fight if it would have happened in 83, 84.
Absolutely. I don't want to go into too much into detail about it. I know it's not a nice subject. Duk Koo Kim, I just wanted to ask you.
I was going to lead into that, but I figured you'd ask me, so I'll let you ask the question.
Do you know what? All I'm going to ask you is, did it change your mentality or your approach after that fight?
No. Obviously, it was a heartbreaking event, something you never wish upon, never want to be part of. Unfortunately, it happened. It was a great fight. It was a great fight. And we won a fight you watched on TV all the time. If what happened didn't happen, and of course, you never seen on TV. And so, and I feel bad because I think it gave him such respectability that he deserved. But after that fight, my love for the fight game, I lost love for the fight game. Because originally I fought for righteous reasons. To win the world title for my father, to be the best world champion I could be for my father, for my city of Youngstown. And then I wanted to get my financial security. After that fight, there was nothing good about it to me. It was, it became a business after that. And, I was actually thinking, we thought about just retiring because my thought was, why him, not me? Because the type of fight it was, it's a very physical fight. Both of us standing there going toe to toe. Why him, not me? And who's to say it wouldn't be me next time? Because my style of fighting is not going to change. So there's a lot of things in my mind going through it. But then I spoke to Father Tim O'Neill, who was a very close friend of mine, a former teacher, and he came to all my fights. And I always looked upon him as my personal spiritual advisor. And I would talk to him a lot during that time. And he finally said to me, Ray, if you're asking me, I want to see you fight again. He said, I think you have a gift. He said, I think God gave you a gift. And your gift is, you're a gift to the city of Youngstown. Because you give people inspiration, you give them hope. And he said, what you've accomplished. He said, so if you're asking me, I want to see you fight again, because if you don't, I think you'd be denying people your gift. And he says, but that's up to you. You got to have your heart and soul into it. And I thought about that. And I said, wow, I've been blessed. I've been fortunate. I don't understand the reason why what happened. And that's, as a strong Catholic Christian, I don't question God. I don't question why. I mean, first you say, God, why? But then you say, well, why not? People say to me, did it ever bother you what happened? Did you ever think that, ever question God, why? I go, no. If you say why, then my next question is why not? Which was my question, which is my answer. Why not me? Why should I be exempt of anything like that? So that's how I viewed it. And then talking to my father, Neil, and talking to family and friends, I decided, I wanted to fight again. I still had the love for it. Not like I did. Don't get me wrong. It changed. That's it. It became a business. So, but I had the opportunity to get my financial security, which is what I wanted. So that's when I continued to fight. But I was looking for the door. I was already looking for the back door to go out. As soon as I knew I had my financial security, that's when I said, okay. And I gave it up. When I retired at 24, people always say, why? Because I had no love for it no more. I had achieved my success, I achieved my dream, and I achieved my financial security. And then when I found out, it's okay, time to go. Because I didn't want to, my style of fighting was not made for a long career anyway. You sacrifice longevity to go in and make your money, to win the world title and, make your money. And if there's any legacy, that's up to the public. That's up to the public. I didn't go to fight for legacy. That's not up to me. So I think I got out at the right time, and yeah.
So just very finally, at the moment, there's an exhibition looking to be announced with Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. First of all, what are your thoughts on that? And secondly, how hard is it for fighters to retire?
First of all, I have very little thoughts on that. People call me, who do you think is going to win? It's an exhibition. It's a paid sparring session. That's it. And it's not going to be that good at all. Look, it's a paid sparring session. When you go in there, I'm not, they have an agreement. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to make you look bad. You don't make me look bad. But let me tell you something. It's like I get offers all the time to do, when I do an exhibition for charity, I say no. Well, what is for charity? I said, I'll tell you what, I'll be there. I'll cheer people on. My bride just walked in. Yes, love. They'll say, will you? I said, I'll come. I'll cheer. I'll sit at ringside. I'll be a guest judge, but I won't do it. I'll tell you why. Because it's two fighters. Me and we're gonna mess around. Two ex-fighters, two former champs. I've got offered every opportunity. Former champs, guys that were local guys that never really went anywhere, but they're, you smack me, I'm smacking you back. Smack me harder, I'm gonna hit you harder. And then the point is, you gotta fight. It's not an exhibition. It's not for charity. I would say no, because it don't turn out good. Now, for whatever reason, look, Mike Tyson, it started out, let me tell you, I know a little bit about this, not everything. People say, oh, he's gonna fight again. I said, he ain't fighting nobody. He ain't fighting nobody. He was up to close to 300 pounds. He started training to get his weight down. The next time, as he started to get down, as you saw, in the video, people start taking videos of him. Oh, look at Mike Tyson. Yeah, hitting the pads. Everyone looks great hitting the pads. 53 years old, still looks like a world champion hitting those pads. I look like a world champion hitting the pads. It don't mean nothing. But because the people started coming in, Vander Holyfield, yeah, we're gonna come back. Let's do it for charity. Stop. So now, Roy Jones could never let it go for whatever reason, and he was starting to get knocked out by guys who had no business, who would never touch him in his heyday. So now they're going to do an exhibition. They're talked about. I'm going to make you look bad. You don't make me look bad. Well, let me tell you something. Say Jones got carried away. Hit Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson taps Roy Jones' chin one time. He'll fall like a sack of rice, or as you say in the UK, like a sack of shite. He'll fall. So my point being is, it's an exhibition. It's a bullcrap thing. It don't mean nothing. I'm not even interested in seeing it. Look, I got approached years ago about when I used to come back fight. I was in my 40s. I'm 59 now. So I'm coming back to fight. I go, hey, hell no. I don't want to see that. Well, Ray, we're doing. It's going to be a Legends League, an old timers. Like they're doing golf, they're doing tennis. And I said, look, you could do it in golf, you could do it in tennis. You can't do it fighting. And not only do I want to see it, I wouldn't watch it. I wouldn't even watch it because I wouldn't want to see it. It's a young man's sport. Nobody wants to watch two old coots who once were try to do it again. It don't work. So this thing with Tyson and Jones, who cares? It's going to be a paid sparring session, and it's going to be a bad one at that, as far as I can. Because ain't nobody going to get close. Roy Jones ain't going to get close to Tyson. No. And Tyson might, if Tyson gets a little bit, get flashbacks, he may haul off and, jump in with left hook. It's going to be ugly. So, no. Who cares? It's a nothing thing. And the fact is, this is where boxing is at this point, that two old timers come back and people more interested in that than anything that's going on in the real fight game. That just goes to show you. And what does it say about they're getting more heat about a possible exhibition than Tyson Fury in any of his fights, or Anthony Joshua in any of his fights? That's the sad part. Boxing needs personalities. Tyson Fury's personality. I don't think he can fight a whole lot, but he's a personality. So I'm glad of that. I think he's good for boxing in that respect. But do I think he can fight? No. No. You know, I mean, he's a big guy who can move, tall guy who can move. But can he fight? Nah. So, anyhow, I'm going off of tangents now, but I'm just, you know, I get caught up talking. But as far as Tyson and Roy Jones, I don't care. I don't think anybody cares. Really don't. But they're going to do it. People will watch.
Expand on that about Tyson Fury. Obviously, he's undefeated, world champion. Nobody's beaten him yet. There's been no blueprint as such. Why do you feel he can't fight?
All right, let me clarify that. Let me go back. I think he's good for the fight game. I like watching. Why? Because boxing needs personalities. He's a personality. He's, but when I say fight, he's a big, tall guy. He lumbers around, throwing that jab. He throws the right hand. He labors the right hand. You don't throw no snap behind it. There's nothing sitting down in 270 pounds of the big guy. You should stop. Wow. He should knock the building out. But he throws it when he's up on his toes, moving. He dropped Deontay Wilder. And Deontay's a friend of mine because I worked for the PBC, for Fox during the PBC fights. Could punch like a son of a gun. Can't fight a whole lot either because he ain't never been taught how to fight. But since he's knocking everyone out, he didn't learn. Tyson Fury's a big guy who can move. But whenever you ever see him throw a 3 or 4 punch combination, ba, 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 it's 5, 6 punch combination. It's jab, jab, throw that right hand. Jab, jab, labor that right hand. Now, he dropped him with a body shot. Oh, great. I mean, like I said, it was good for boxing. But that's what I mean by he can't fight a lot. Not that he's not talented or nothing. I will never take away anybody's talent. He's a world champion. What I'm talking about, I don't think he fights a lot, meaning it's basics. His fundamentals are not there. He pushes the jab, pushes the right, stand there, big guy like that, why would you even move? Why would you even be dancing? You're stronger, bigger, stronger than everybody. You should stand there and let them come to you. A guy like Mike Tyson, let him come to you. Bah, bah, stick that right hand and then hit him with that right hand. You know what I mean? You should play with a guy like that. Perfect, guys like him should watch guys like Bob Foster, who the old light heavyweight champ. Bob Foster was 6'3", that big left hook. Bob Foster would stand there and he wouldn't move a lot. He'd just stand there, tap jab. He'd set guys up, let them fall into traps, and then catch him with that hooker. That's what Tyson Fury should do. He don't need to be on his toes. So, but that's right. And then the first fight, he was beating Deontay Wilder like crazy. Deontay Wilder could punch, hits him with that chin, he falls and then he goes down hard. But to his credit, he got up. That saved his career. He don't get up, contact, it's over. But that got him the second fight. And now he's world champion. So I admire that. I don't know him personally. I think he'd be a fun guy to hang out with, be a fun guy to talk to. And I don't mean no disrespect when I say no fight, but it's going to be hard not to take it without saying, well, he's disrespecting him. I don't mean that. He's good for boxing. I like watching. He's a personality. I don't think he's fundamentally sound. That's what I mean. He does things, stand there, a big, strong guy, throw 5, 6 punch combination. Dude, even Ali used to sit down and punch it, 5, 6 punch combination. Do that. Anyhow. And that's the truth. But here's the thing. Anthony Joshua is fundamentally sound. Fundamentally sound. I think Joshua Fury, that's the fight. And that's a pick and fight for me. I think Tyson Fury movement would give Joshua problems, but Joshua's fundamentally sound, and he's a big, tall guy too. So Fury wouldn't have a lot of advantages. He'd have the height advantage, and reach advantage maybe. But Joshua's fundamentally sound, and that fundamentals might be the guy like Tyson Fury.
Would you back Joshua to beat Fury if that were to happen?
I'd pick Joshua, yeah, because it's fundamentally sound. He's just straight punches. You throw straight punches, is going to be the guy who comes from wide.
Ray, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me today.